Lions fans, how's everything going this morning? Uh, yeah. Of course, I want to talk about like how the Lions have won the second game, or you could state it as two in a row, or a win streak, yada yada, or if they are contenders and so forth. And at the beginning of the season, I said that give give me 3 games to show if they are contenders or not. And in those 3 games, I believe they went one and two, I believe. And I saw then that they weren't. Once I saw that, I made my statement that they were not contenders, and they have since then. They turned their record around. They are at 500. And if I were to be asked that question again, are they contenders? I was still back that statement up by saying no, they are not contenders. What I am saying about this team and what I am seeing about this team is that continuity is growing. To be a contender, from my personal opinion, and from what I saw over the years of the teams that's not a contender for that particular year, but year in, year out contenders. You're talking about those are considered the dynasties. They develop continuity to become a contender. You're not a contender if you make the playoffs one year. You are a contender if you continuously make the playoffs. Now, some fans may have a different criteria, a different standard of what a contender is. My standard of being a contender would be, or would consist of, them repeatedly doing it, so it won't be considered a fluke. So what this team is doing, you are seeing guys, of course, they're developing continuity and they're gelling, but they're gelling at a very specific angle. This angle is that players don't have to be put in position to be in position to make a play. It's like they're knowing what their job is, and knowing what their job is makes the assignment that much more easier. So if you are a left tackle and you know your assignment, not just the game plan for that week or so forth, but the assignment of how to master their positioning, how to leverage, how to master themselves. And I believe that a lot of the players, let's say we got a 100% marketing, and you got so you got 50 to 75% of the players is actually knowing how to position themselves, how to master themselves to be put in position to do their job. That makes the guy next to them that much better, and it makes them that much better because they don't have to do their job and somebody else's job. Now continuity can develop and grow. So with that being said, you get a play like what Trey Flowers did, or you get a play like Romeo Okror did. What Trey Flowers did, what he was able. I was looking at Chris Billman and Michael Hara, and they was breaking down the past week game against the Falcons, and it was Chris Billman was he was very specific, and he was harming in or he was really focusing on the play that Trey Flowers made. I guess the defensive knockdown, but he basically was setting up the play by walking us through like his positioning. By Trey Flowers being so aware of what the offense is doing, if it was a rug route, if it was a player coming out the flat, whatever the case may be, whatever that he was aware of, he was so ahead of the play that he was able to be a better defender. So what Trey Flowers ended up doing was He saw it being like I can't say if it's a drag route or whatever, but if you got a cross pattern where it's like a, I'm gonna say double cross, but it's basically like a screen. In basketball terms, it would be like a pick or a screen. So he saw that and he was able to leverage himself to push a defender basically into a defender. So that basically takes out those two receivers. Uh, no, he was able. Excuse me. He was able to take out a offensive player with another offensive player, and so that eliminated that play of whatever. If that was the play or the scheme to get a guy out the flat or whatever to get a good 5 yards. I think they was like 4th and 5, I believe. I'm not sure, or 3rd and 5, and they needed, of course, that to get the first down. And but by him being heads up, him knowing he is Trey Flowers once again. I if I heard early on what last year last year when they signed him to that contract, like he's a waste. He's not a dominant guy. He don't get you 12 sacks. He don't get you all these different things. What Trey Flowers does, he is so incredibly smart. He is a Patricia guy. Deron Harmon is a Patricia guy. Amendola is a Patricia guy. Jamie Collins is a Patricia guy. They are so smart. Now, there is room for error. Unfortunately, they're not perfect, so they can make a mistake, and it can be that mistake could be at a crucial time when all the cameras are zooming in on that one mistake, or it's coming at a very crucial moment of the game, and it's like a deciding factor that can give a bad report or give a bad angle of the player. Nonetheless, those players are very crafty, very smart. IQ, not just talent. That's in terms of leverage, in terms of positioning himself and so forth. I stick behind Quinn and Patricia of bringing those guys in this year. I totally, all the players that have brought in this year, I stick behind them 100%. There's not one player here that they brought in that they may have gave them X amount of dollars, or they may have considered in Lions terms overpaying a player. I'm a total agreement with all the players that they brought in here, and then I backed it up 100%. But going back to the Lions being a contenders, they're not a contender. They are actually knocking on the door of being a contender. They are one off season away from becoming a contender. With that being said, they will make the playoffs. And that will be proof that they're not contenders. They will make the playoffs, but it's like the wild card. They may get in, and even if they win, and I projected it going to the Super Bowl. If not, they're going to the NFC title game. The wild card game is not a. I don't consider them a contender. That comes next year because they will be able to finish off the job that they started for the past 2 years. So they will be going in Quinn Patricia era as a 4th year, and they will be being able to complete the deal. Do they have to get to the NFC title game? No, I'm saying they will get to the NFC title game. But the wild card game is going to be the indication of, it's going to be the proof to showing they're not contenders. What I mean by that will be them increasingly knocking on the door. So that will put the initiative into Bob Quinn's hands, like we can go ahead and go all out if they're allowed, excuse me, if they're allowed by the owner to go make some trades and so forth, and actually put the team over the top. They're not over the top yet. The proof of that is that they still make mental errors. That game, let's say, for example, if you got 4 shots in the red zone with the skill players that the Lions have, and the craftiness of their quarterback, and if the craftiness of the quarterback is just the game manager and so forth, then they establish in a run game. If that is all intact, there's no reason for you to come out with no points or 3 points. You should come out with at least 6. At least 6. They're too good not to. It's just somewhere along the line, they're settling still. They're still settling. So those mental errors are kicking in. What I mean by that, if Trey Flowers, if Trey Flowers was so heady in that play on that last drive, that defensive play by pushing an offensive player to another offensive player to take both of them out, well, I would need that offensive side of the ball be just as good. And that's where I don't see yet an offensive player on the same level as Trey Flowers as of yet. And if I may be more specifically on the offensive line, you got three guys that is capable of becoming that, and that's in Frank Ragnow, that's in Jonah Jackson, and that's in Halapaludi Vati. Those three guys are savvy, heady players. And there's a reason why Joe Dahl is not back in the lineup. There's a reason for that. And I'm going to go on record by saying next year they will go get them a starting left guard. I'm going to say a Pro Bowl caliber, all pro, not Pro Bowl, all pro caliber, either if it's through the draft or if it's going to be through free agency. I don't know if Tunney is on. I know he signed the what is that thing called where the player can the franchise tag. I believe they franchise tagged him for this year. I don't know if they signed him overall. I'm not saying he's a target, but I'm saying a guy of his stature that is actually positioned to understand how to play himself, how to master. He's a guy who have somewhat mastered himself. So that's not a guy you have to teach how to be technically sound of himself. So they are missing one player on offense, one piece on offense. And that's even if Kenny Golladay, they don't sound Kenny Golladay. Signing Kenny Golladay is like a bonus. It's not like signing Calvin Johnson. Calvin Johnson is a guy that they had to sign because he was the offense. Stafford was not the offense. Calvin Johnson was the offense. He carried that offense. They had no tight end. They had no run game. And somebody would say, well, Stafford had to give him the ball. Stafford just throw the ball up and Calvin makes a play. Don't get me wrong. Every now and again, Stafford will be heady and make a good throw or something like that. But majority of the time with Calvin Johnson, he was never really an accurate quarterback. He would hold on to the ball or he would turn the ball over or something like that because Stafford had to do too much. With that being said, Kenny Golladay is a different guy. The team is like more in position to replace Kenny Golladay than they are to replace Calvin Johnson. Kenny Golladay is he is a game changer. He is an excellent piece to this puzzle. However, he's not Calvin Johnson in this position where he doesn't have to he doesn't have to carry the team, the offense. The team doesn't go as Kenny Golladay goes. Kenny Golladay takes the team over the hump. He's like let's say, for example, if you have a team that's already assembled, he is like a Kawhi Leonard type of guy. He a guy that can get you over the hump. He's not a guy that can get you to the hump and get you over the hump. That's what Calvin Johnson can do. So in that return, I say Calvin Johnson is a better receiver, but overall, I believe that Kenny Golladay is the better receiver than whatever, because his impact on the game is not comparison to Calvin. Calvin is, you got the natural talent, the ability that he can do. That changes like LeBron James versus someone like Kobe Bryant. Kobe Bryant was all effort. You got talent, but all effort. LeBron, it just like a specimen. It has never been seen before. So that's like Calvin Johnson. Calvin Johnson being 6'5", running 4'2", jumping out of the building. It has never been seen before at the size of him and as his ability. But with that being said, Kenny Golladay is like Kobe Bryant. Like he's going to be a technician. That's where Chad Osenko came in and said that he has an A factor. And when you get statements from Kenny Golladay saying about Amendola that, I'm not going to let somebody outwork me, you got a technician. Somebody who's going to work at their craft. A technician gets better every year. adding something new to his game, and becoming one of the better receivers to ever play the game because he's going to work at it. But anyway, with that being said, Kenny Golladay is expendable to that degree. You can get somebody to be a receiver in that spot. But if he were Calvin Johnson, it would be a different deal because the way the offense is set up, you have a run game established because you have an offensive line that's establishing. You have a run game that's establishing. So you have a tight end, and you actually have tight ends, plural. And so even if you let go of Marvin Jones and Kenny Golladay, you have to replace their whole receiving core. You got a guy Amendola as a teacher, per se, on the field. So, and you can actually plug that in. Am I saying let go of those guys? I'm saying if you get like a Herschel Walker deal for like a Kenny Golladay, you take it. If you get 2 picks for 1 for Marvin, you take it. If you get something that will make you better for next year, because next year offseason, say that way, it's like going to be the key component that will get the Lions into contentions. I mean, not just contending, but contentions, plural. Not just for next year, but the year after that. They will constantly have a thing going. That's why I would say they are one offseason away from that. But with that being said, what the Lions have established these last 2 games, they have turned the corner at the bye week. The bye week was the turning point. Even though there wasn't no game being played, but the bye week was the turning point. That gave the team an opportunity to come together. They was coming together at the beginning of the year. Even this is what makes their coming together so significantly special, is because there was no reason for them really to come together. The team is really not have to practice per se. A lot of players can bail out because of what the pandemic and so forth, and how the NFL was structuring around that. So, but yet and still, they was coming around. So social justice and all that good stuff. I get that, but they was coming together as a team. They're bonding. They're coming together as a team. So somebody became a leader, and it became infectious, where other leaders wanted to step up, and no one really wants not to be a part of it. And you're seeing like players, like say like for example, for the offensive line to go down in the game against I think it was the Jaguars. And I think you have 2, I think the right side of the ball went down with dehydration. And you saw how they had a defensive lineman step in on the offensive side. I think the guy name is Matt Nelson. And he came in and played. That's like New England Patriots. I remember the year that I think it was Troy Brown. I think he was their receiver, and I think they had him playing corner because they was down players. That's not so much the New England way. That's the 49ers way back in the 80s. That's the Dallas Cowboys in the 90s. That's any regime that actually is developing a dynasty. There's no excuses. It's not so much no excuses that the players are saying that. It's the impact of the player to saying like whatever it takes to win. I don't think I ever witnessed that in as a spectator of the Lions, that they never had players that would say whatever it takes to win. They will always have one guy to carry the team, i.e. Barry Sanders, i.e. Calvin Johnson. They always have one guy to carry the team, but they never had players to say, well, we're not. You have a guy that would come out and to the media say like we're not going to lose this game type deal. But yet and still, you don't have those type of players that's willing to to do whatever it takes to win the game. Like you get a defensive lineman that's going to the offensive line, that type deal, or you get a linebacker that's converting to a tight end. You want to win because you don't have to do it here. Of all places, you don't have to do it in Detroit. It's a losing team for over 50 years. So you don't have to do it here. You can just get paid. But you're seeing guys buy into a certain peg hole. That's where the players that didn't want to buy in, if I may alter a comparison by using another sport, going back to the Detroit Pistons when Joe Dumars was assembling the Going to Work crew. And when he hired Rick Carlisle, and Rick Carlisle, first thing he came to do, he came to establish the defense, right? And he brought Kevin O'Neal, and they came in and they was establishing the defense. Defense was pretty much together. I think they had brought Cliff Robinson in. They made the decision to go with Michael Curry at the small forward. You got Dana Barros and Stackhouse as your backcourt. You got Ben Wallace, Cliff Robinson, and Michael Curry as your front court. Not much to really say about, but if you do it right, that's a defensive lineup. That's a defensive lineup. That's not points. That's defense. So what Rick Carlisle came to Stackhouse. Stackhouse the prior year was averaging like 20 over 25 points a game. I think it was averaging like 29. I think he was the offense. Ben Wallace was the defense. And so Rick Carlisle, first thing that he came and had a conversation with Stackhouse, and he was asking Stackhouse to say, well, if we're going to win, you're going to have to alter your game. In other words, those touches that you were getting and all the way that you was playing, you're going to have to alter all that. So that's what he was willing to do by approaching Stackhouse. And it's up to Stackhouse to say, okay, I buy in. So Stackhouse bought in, and they won 50 games. They won 50 games. So that I put that comparison to the same thing with the line where Patricia was asking guys like Glover Quinn or Darius Slay or Quandre Diggs and those players that was here from the previous regime. Now, excuse me, those guys from the previous regime had earned their spot to basically say, no, I don't have to alter my game. Not for your way or anything. So that became a situation that they actually you have to addition with subtraction. You have to let them go. But if you look at the replacement of those players, I would take the replacement over them any day. Any day. So somebody may say, well, who's the replacement for Darius Slay? Okuda is. And I would take Okuda and his learning curve over a veteran and Darius Slay any day. The reason why, because I believe Darius Slay was very immature. You know, he was talented nonetheless, you know, but that's as far as it went. I don't think he was a leader per se. A leader is a guy that says like, will say like, whatever it takes for us to win. They buy in. Even if it's a guy that they don't like, they buy it because it's not about them. It's about the team. But with him, it's clear. It was about him. I'm not going to make this about him, but I'm just making a point. Not saying he was a good player here. He did what he did. He showcased himself. So if you look at the players that actually did leave, they didn't want to be up under Patricia, how they're producing now. So you got some players that are actually producing good because they actually fit in where they was at, or they bought in to where they're at. But the point is, what I'm saying is, Patricia brought guys in that was willing to buy in to a team thing versus an individual thing. So that would make it about going back to Kenny Galladay. If you want to make it about himself, he's expendable. If he's going to make it about the team, he can get his money as well as be a part of the team development going forward. If not, you have to let it go. That's why if any fan is saying like, pay the guy, if I'm Bob Quinn, and if I'm the owner, if I'm Bob Quinn, and that is on the table to pay the guy or not, I want to know if he's a part of us going forward. They could be looking at the team like, okay, we're not contenders, but we're knocking on the door. The owners can see that, and they can say like, well, don't make them that kind of investment just yet. We want to see how this play out. If we're going to continue to build with this, or we're going to tear it down. If we're going to tear it down, there's no point of investing in him because he's not Calvin Johnson. That the guy that you had to put on he had to carry the offense. He is a piece to the puzzle, nonetheless. To another team, he may have to be the Calvin Johnson type to carry the offense. But here, he's a piece to the puzzle. Look at this offense. Look at the offense. Look at the offensive line. Have you ever seen a more competent offensive line in the Lions history? This is a competent offensive line with a competent run game. Now, the fans may say that to get the ball out of Adrian Peterson's hands, and he keep the ball in his hands until DeAndre Swift take the ball out of his hands. Don't give DeAndre Swift anything. That's what they have done the previous ever since Barry Sanders, they have tried to give players the keys to to that run game. If you want to go from Kevin Jones to Kevin Smith, do you want to say to Abdullah, to Javid Best, Reggie Bush? They try to it's few guys that I'm missing. They try to give the keys to these guys to be the next Barry Sanders, or to give us a run game, in other words. And they didn't earn it. They was given the keys. They didn't earn it. They may have did one good game and they was given the keys. If DeAndre Swift is the guy, they even did it with Kerryon Johnson. They try to give him the keys. You don't give anybody the keys. You make them take the keys. Adrian Peterson is the standard. If you want the keys, you got to be above what he's doing on a consistent basis. That's in practice, that's in film room, that's in walkthroughs, that's in leadership, that's in being able to fit in camaraderie, so forth, as well as on the field, week in, week out. Adrian Peterson deserves that spot because he is a pro's pro. He has everything, the boxes that need to be checked off for that position to be done. He's checking them off. The only thing that Adrian Peterson cannot contribute is to be back youthful. That's the only thing he cannot check off. That's the only box that he can't check off. Otherwise, DeAndre Swift, the fans may say, give him more touches. I say, keep doing what you're doing. Make him earn it. Some fans may say, like, well, they didn't make Danny Shelton earn it. They didn't make Trey Flowers earn it. They didn't make Jamie Collins or Deron Harmon earn it. They did earn it. They earned it before they got there. Patricia knows what he's getting with those guys, not in 1 year coaching them. He knows what he's getting with them guys. Those guys was that way night in and night out. They was a certain way. The same guy that you're getting Jamie Collins is the same guy that you got in New England and the same guy that you get in Cleveland. He is a mixture of two. But with that, they saying that we can play with that until we can find a piece that he doesn't have to do what he has to do. Jamie Collins actually has to play two positions until somebody steps up and do the other position. Tavai is still learning how to master himself in the NFL. He's still learning. And if a fan could say, hey, they're playing him out of position and so forth, it was still, if the coach is asking you to do this, we asking you to do this. So it doesn't matter if you're out of position. It's either you can do it or you're not. So with that being said, you have a team that wins 2 games. But when those 2 games, you're seeing how they're winning. They're not quitting, not winning. Like last year, they had a couple games where they fought, but they couldn't close it out. And that carried over to this year. I went on record in a couple of videos back by saying that don't change up anything. I want the Lions not to be in a blowout win. I want them to be in the same position that they have been with I think it was like a 14-game streak of them being having a lead, like in a double digit or a lead going to the fourth quarter and they losing those games. I want them to be in those exact same positions and until they're able to take down that mountain or that monkey off their back. Stay there. That's like staying in man. Stay in man coverage until they're ready to take that monkey off their shoulders. And once they took that monkey off their shoulders, they mastered or they got a better position of how to play man, they could jump to zone. They could jump to another different scheme. Because push come to shove, if the opposing team is countering off the zone, you can always go back to man. I think one of the spectators or commentators basically said during the game, when the Lions was doing the defense, I don't know if they was playing zone or whatnot, and they made a statement by saying, Lions go back to doing what you do best, which is what? Man. Why? Because they have mastered playing man. I have never seen a team that's more structurally sound by a general manager and the head coach in the Lions history. Never seen, particularly as individuals, let alone as a tandem. I've seen players, I've seen coaches and general managers get a lightning in a bottle type deal where they may get a player like a Calvin Johnson. That's a millionaire. Who was that guy for Mayhew? He missed it in Aaron Donald. right? Or you could say that he got Ndamukong Suh, but he lost it, right? So I never seen a general manager develop talent. This is from the moment that Bob Quinn got here. All the stuff that was here before him, he moved that out, with the exception of maybe two players, maybe Mulbach and Matthew Stafford. Maybe the exception of those two players, but nonetheless, the majority of players is all Bob Quinn. This is all Bob's Quinn crew. That's why he would get a fourth year. So, with that being said, you got the coach. I have never seen Jim Schwartz and Cardwell is what I got to go off of, right? Because Jim Schwartz had Ndamukong Suh, Calvin Johnson, right, and a young Matthew Stafford. He had that as his big three. The highest you got was a playoff game, not a playoff win, but a playoff game. You may have got a winning record or so, but not a playoff win. Same thing with Jim Cardwell. He didn't have a Suh. He had a young Calvin. I mean, he had I want to say a prime Calvin and a prime maybe Stafford. But all you got is a playoff game. No playoff win. So that was as far as they can take it, that regime, how it was structurally built. It was built off of a couple players versus building off a team. So when Quinn comes in and restructure all of that, he said, I want to build this off a team game, because he's coming by how he learned up in New England. Their engine runs off a team. Everybody has to be able to do their job for it to work. It's not based off one individual. So until, let's say, for example, why the Patriots is not winning, because they still need one guy to do their job, and that's the quarterback position. Cam Newton was a carryover, for they get their next guy. And I do not want them to give the Lions an offer for David Blau, because they would turn David Blau into a Tom Brady. Do not do it. Lions general manager Bob Quinn, do not do it. But anyway, with that being said, the Lions are positioning themselves with this tandem of Quinn and Patricia, how to be game in, game out. So the two games that they won, you could say they beat the Jaguars handily, and they said, like, well, they barely won against. There was a lucky. Somebody may say there's a lucky win against the Falcons. It's not a lucky win when it comes to the Lions, when you got a history of having a lead going into the fourth quarter, and you squandering that lead. You at that point, you're learning how to dig yourself out of a hole, and that's what they're doing when that type of game. They had no reason to win that game. They have no reason to win that game, but they won that game. Somebody may say that the officials cheated for them. As you can see, if you look at the game, the officials didn't cheat for the Lions. If anything, it balanced itself out to make it a fair game. So it's up to the Lions to win it or lose it. The Lions chose to win the game. That's something that you can say in their history they don't do. They don't choose to win the game. They choose to find a way to lose the game. Going back to the bye week, I said they turned the corner, and that bye week enabled them to have a, let's say, I want to say a purpose, like training camp. That's like that bye week was like a condensed training camp. It was a small window, but it was like a condensed training camp. But it was the magnitude or the significance of that bye week was so important that it changed the landscape of the team. In other words, how they was those from last year to this year, how they was winning those games, but they couldn't close it out. That bye week was the indication of how to close out that game. That's how significant that bye week was. It wasn't just a practice. It was like how the players came together, or the significance of why they came together. They don't have to. They're losing, right? The season is losing. They could tank it all out. They could just get paid. But they turned the corner They make it's like a decision. Either you want to win or you're going to find a ways to win or find a way to lose. Now, somebody can say, well, they're just 2 games, and I get you that. I give you that. That's why I would say they're not contenders yet. Because if I were to say that they were a contender, they will go to the Indianapolis game, and that will be a win. It don't matter if Indianapolis coming off a bye week and 85-2. None of that matters. If you're a contender, you'll go in somebody's house and you take it. Or not just that, your team will be so in position of themselves, it doesn't matter what the opposing team does. We're going to take it. That's what they're learning how to do. That's the difference between Patricia, Jim Caldwell, and Jim Schwartz. That's the difference. Patricia don't want nobody to give him anything. He wants to take it. He brought in players that wants to take it. Adrian Peterson, Trufant, Trey Flowers, Danny Shelton, Jamie Collins, all those players, they want to take it. And actually, there has been, since Matthew Stafford has been here, all the way up from the time he was drafted up to Patricia, let's say up to Bob Quinn. Matthew Stafford have never been a take it guy. He's been sort of like a nonchalant guy. Like, okay, if we win, we win. We don't, we don't. That's why you see him in the presser. But like, well, hey, we just got to do better. It was that type of energy. But now if you listen to him now, it's a different type of energy. It's more so saying like, I'm going to be better type of energy. It's more accountability. Not saying things that sound as though you're accountable, but you can hear the energy and the tone of his like he believes it. Like this is who he is versus, like I am this guy. I'm going to be better. And you can see that. And you look at like the teeth that they gave him. And it's like giving teeth to a barking dog that has no teeth. That's what the move like Adrian Peterson does. So now Adrian Peterson is like, Maglio Dornes pick. No, Pudge Rodriguez pick. When the Tigers were assembling up under Dave Dabrowski and Jim Leland, and they had nothing going for them. I think it was coming off that record of the most losing games or something like that of that season, and they had nothing to build with. So he went out and got Pudge Rodriguez. Now, does that one player save it? No, but what that does is establish a foundation for players to come here. Then he went and got Maglio Dornes, and then he makes the trade for Cabrera, and he's putting all his pieces together. But he started off with something. He needed something to build off of. And that one move that they built off of with the Lions, in my opinion, was Trey Flowers. When you got that one key free agent, they overpaid Pudge Rodriguez. They overpaid the Trey Flowers. They overpaid, right? But you had to overpay because you got nothing here. You got nothing here. So now that piece allows you to go ahead and make other moves. Without that Trey Flower move, you don't make other moves. That's why he was, in my opinion, was worth. I think he signed a $90 million contract. That's why he was worth it. You can go get Adrian Peterson now. Not just that, coming to this free agency, the NFL was looking at the Lions, how they was losing in the fourth quarter, right? No player really wanted to come here because they're like, well, they're not a winning team. And then you got the turmoil with the players with the coach and type deal and that kind of deal. Nobody wanted to come here. Nobody wanted to come here before Patricia got here. Nobody really wanted. You got the TJ Lang who's on his last leg. You got the Rick Wagner because Baltimore really didn't want him and stuff like that. You have those kind of like players that they were like replaceable at their team, at their previous team, but they were like so necessary here because we didn't have nothing to their caliber of talent. So you had to go get them, so to speak. But now the Lions don't have to get those type of players. You get those type of players that are leaders per se. They may be at not in their prime but past their prime, but they are leaders nonetheless in a locker room at their position. That's why Adrian Peterson fits. So you can go ahead and get another move now. You don't have to go get a player that is washed up. Like when they were saying, go get Jack Conklin. And you overpay him, you go get him. No, you don't do that. You don't have to do that anymore. That's what the Trey Flowers moves was for. You only overplay one player. Somebody said they overpaid Halapoulivaati. Vitae. Could not be so wrong. The dude can play guard and tackle at a high level. Is he better at tackle than he is guard? Yeah, because that's his actual position that he have been doing probably since what he was probably since what uh, you could say Pop Warner or whatever. He probably doing this since he was a kid. Whatever, or maybe playing running back or something like that. But since college or high school, maybe he been practicing at that. So he's kind of like got a skill at that. But he's equally. I mean, you could see the same way like with Matt Nelson playing from defense to offense. You could see the same will and the how to go from tackle to guard if that's what they need me to do. And they needed him to do. They needed him to do it because Joe Dahl went down, so they had to shift Jonah from one side of the ball to the other side of the ball. And with that, Terrell Crosby had to take Velati spot because Velati was hurt. So, but Crosby took that spot and don't want to let it go. So okay, all right. Joe Dahl comes back, but Jonah had went from one side to the other side, and Velati had to step in at Jonah's spot, and it's working. So why change it? But going into like if an injury happens, you can go back to form, but you don't break something that's working. You don't stop something that's working. So they're actually developing. And that's all the Lions ever needed was a unit to develop or to start the jail and develop a continuity so they can go find pieces to build off of. In the offseason, myself was included, the fans would say, go get this player. And I would say they're not in position to go get that player. And this is what I mean by they're not in position to get that player. Nothing was established to get that player. They were just overpaying a player just to be here. Somebody said, like, they overpay Halapoulivaati. Look what he's doing. He's playing two positions at a high level. Now, is he an all-pro at guard like he could be at tackle? No. That comes later. But you needed him to switch to guard, and he's playing it at a high level. Did they overpay Trey Flowers? Yeah, they overpaid. They had to. That's that one guy they had to overpay versus overpaying a guy like a TJ Lane. And TJ Lane is good in Green Bay, but he's not good with the Lions because he's past his prime. So they overpaid for something like when the Pistons made the trade to go get Allen Iverson. They traded Chauncey to get Allen Iverson. That was a bad move. It saved you money nonetheless, but it was a bad move. Look at the results of it. It was a bad move. Chauncey was still in his prime, so to speak, where you could still win with Chauncey. That was a bad move. And the reason why, because Chauncey was a leader. He was just a leader. And he have learned in previous years with the Pistons to be that rightful spot as a leader. So you don't get rid of that. Trey Flowers is a leader, and you've seen it. You saw it. My indication of that was when they played against the Green Bay Packers, I think it was last year, and he got those two bad calls against him. And how he handled that showed me why they paid him $90 million. Never mind the talent and what he's about to morph into, his skill of mastering the skill and showing you why he's worth the $90 million. That right there, that how he handled the press, how he handled the situation, showed me that he's a bona fide leader. And it has something to build off of. So with that being said, they're not contenders as of yet. They will knock on the door, or they're knocking on the door as contentions to be a contender, but not there yet. They're going to do something. They may even overachieve by the luck of the draw, what the case may be. They may get into the playoffs and that, not by the seven team, or they're going to get into the playoffs. And they may even get to the NFC title game by the luck of the draw. But I said they will win the Super Bowl and not go to Super Bowl next year, if not win the Super Bowl next year. But next year, this offseason, it will be the indication of them being a contender. With that being said, Lions fans, I salute.